Okay,
Okay, I think we're ready to go.
I think
So, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Fabulous Friday TV. Women from all over the world are coming together today to celebrate fabulous. Living fabulous, being fabulous, and feeling fabulous. I'm Sherry Kallergis with At 45, the magazine for women when life changes, and co founder of Fabulous University with Anne.
and I'm Anne Marot, and I'm the founder of Women Connect, an elite membership program where women can go and upskill themselves, empower themselves, and everything they find is in one place. I'm also the co-founder of Fabulous University alongside Sherry, and I'm very grateful for the speakers being here today. Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to what you have to share with us, and back to you, Sherry.
Well, it's true. I'm so looking forward to the show today, too. Anne and I are so blessed that you're taking time out of your busy schedule to join us. Some of you are getting up early, others of you are delaying your supper to watch the show. And we're having such a fun time connecting with women. And it was amazing, just as we were waiting for the show to start, two women came onto the show and they live very close to each other and made a connection just because they had come to our show. So if you are enjoying the show or appreciate what you're learning about it, please help us grow the show and share it with your friends. Invite them to come and attend with you. Just a little bit of housekeeping. The show is broadcast live on our Facebook channel, as well as being recorded for YouTube. So we just want to make you aware that if you're sharing, you want to keep that in mind. So today the show is embracing who you are, how it takes courage to do that. And it requires you to find a way through anxiety, a lack of confidence, or maybe a lack of self love. And we want to talk about coming out on the other side victorious and being able to attain that fabulous feeling. So, embracing who you are is definitely a courageous act, but especially if you're feeling flawed. A number of years ago, I seen this poster, and whenever I'm feeling flawed, I refer to it. And what it said is flawsome, an adjective, an individual who embraces their flaws and know they're awesome regardless. And the problem for many of us is the words are easy to read, but to actually embrace what we see as flaws is at times, well, insurmountable. And we're so hard on ourselves. We don't expect perfection from those we love, but when we don't love ourselves, well, we just seem to dig a pit. And learning to let go of the guilt and shame of the being tired, it all takes work. And I believe we can seldom do it alone. At many times in my life, I've reached out to professionals, whose expertise allows me to sort of peel off another layer of the complexities of me as a person. And I've often shared that the book that changed my course of life is The Power of Now. And it was a recommendation from a therapist when the problems in my life just left me too tired and too exhausted to navigate going forward on my own. So I highly recommend when you are too tired to use someone else's strength. And the two women today come from a place of knowledge, and I'm so looking forward to adding some more tools from them in my toolbox of life. And how, what has been your experience when you're too tired?
What is that, Sherry?
Well, when, oh, you're so lucky you're never too tired. I know that you're a dynamo, Anne.
Well, you know what? I'm just my daughter said to me some time ago, now a couple of weeks ago, she was like, "How do you actually manage to keep going with such a high level of energy all the time?" Because, of course, last year she got into her own business, and she just, I mean, her business completely different, but it also demands high energy, and it's editing videos. She does videography and photography. And so I just said, well, it's a question of mindset. But yes, of course, like everyone else, I do get tired. But I psych myself up in my little morning sessions. I have a routine or a little um, time for myself when I wake up. So when I wake up, the first thing I never do is look at my phone. I spend a half an hour before I get out of bed. Normally I wake up at 5, so I get out about 5:30. But I literally, um, there's no better word for it, psych myself up. Like I think about what I'm going to do today. I get excited about the things that I've got on my plate, and I get up. And yes, I do get tired. And yes, there is help in South Africa. You can call. I mean, we're lucky in South Africa that we have domestic help, so I don't have to clean my home. I don't have to, we're very, very lucky here. And the lady that works for me, her and her husband have been with me for 13 years. So I must be doing something right in their life. They love me to bits, and they come in and they clean up. So that in itself, I know from my travels, whether it was to Europe, America, haven't been yet to Canada, but all over the world, that's the big thing that makes us women exhausted, because we have to, get in, and also amongst everything else that we're doing, we also have to see that the house is operational and clean and stuff. So I'm lucky in that aspect where I have someone to help me. I think that makes the big difference in my life anyway. If I had to also clean my home, which my home is, like it's like 3 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms type of thing. It's a big home. I wouldn't be able to cope with it. So yeah, I think that plays a big part, Sherry.
Well, that's a whole nother level of expertise for sure that we can call on in our life. Um, so yes, great insight. Now, Anne, you're going to introduce our first guest today.
I am, and okay, so I want to take this moment to introduce Faythe Buchanan. Um, Now, Faythe has been, as I said when some of you were on, a client of mine for quite some time, and we've actually never met. So we've only met on Zoom, and I'm very pleased that Faythe is here to share her expertise with us today. I mean, over the years, Faythe has helped thousands of people to learn how to solve their problems and face difficulties without without getting anxious. And it's something that happens to a lot of people. They're activated by anxiety, and as an anxiety deactivation expert, she shares the secrets that get rid of anxiety. She combines science and knowledge, the knowledge of human behavior, to entertain you with the knowledge you need to teach your brain how not to worry. And that in itself is quite interesting. So I'm going to hand you over to Faythe now. Welcome, Faythe.
Thank you. And once my husband, who's on this call, and I get over the jealousy of the house cleaning and the domestic help that you have, I'll get going. So I want to start, if I may, telling you a little story. And I'd like you to imagine it's a summer day in rural Nova Scotia. Some of you know what that looks like. And it was noon, and my family was walking into a little rural cafe. And I was 5 and my sister was 2. My father towered over us at 6'2", and my mother measured in at 5'1". But despite my father's height, as my family walked into this little cafe, we were almost invisible. We were so thin. And as we walked in, my father went over and he he looked down at the menu, and the three of us stepped back and waited. And I'll never forget that cafe. It had that fake black and white cowhide on the booths, and I thought it was just beautiful. And it was a pale green, and there was a faint, it was immaculate. And there was a faint smell of food, and I was so hungry. And after a moment, my father stood up, and then he walked out the door, and we followed him out into the sunshine and back into the car. And I don't know if I knew then or if it was years later that there was nothing on that menu that we could afford. Nothing, not even a sandwich that would give our little family what we needed. So fast forward to 17 years and I'm 18 or 19, I can't do math. I'm quite a few years later, I'm 18 and I'm 5'7" and I weigh 95 pounds. And I'm not anorexic. We are still what I call empty refrigerator poor. You see, the challenge in my family was whenever there was a problem, my mother would get dreadfully anxious to the point of fainting sometimes. And my father would go into a panicky rage. He had terrible post-traumatic stress from active service. And so nothing ever got solved. And watching my parents and feeling the pain of my own experience, I didn't want to live like that. I didn't want other people to live like that. So I unconsciously at first went on a quest. And I became an occupational therapist initially and a psychotherapist, and I worked in hospitals and for victim services and in crisis units. And I listened probably, I've added it up. I had for a lot of years, I had 3 small children to support. So I had to work a lot of hours. And it's well over 40,000 hours that I have what I call sat at the door of people's soul and listened to the stories of pain and struggle and trauma and listening for what hurt and then figuring out what worked and what didn't to resolve these issues. And I discovered with all these people as well, that it was anxiety that stopped them from solving their problems. And Sherry talked about becoming, owning who you are, and without anxiety and without the effects of trauma, people are amazing. I learned this, initially working with severely traumatized people. And as soon as the symptoms were gone, you see this awesome person. So I often think that becoming who we are is just a matter of getting the dust off. It's just a matter of learning how to relate to problems and challenges without getting anxious. So there's a quote from Einstein that I just love. I'm kind of a fan. I don't know if I'd known if I'd have liked him, but I sure like what he said. So he said, if you understand a problem and where it comes from, you're 80% of the way to solving it. Now, in the 80s, the medical community, according to some of the literature, really stopped trying to find out where anxiety came from. And the thing was to medicate and manage. So that's kind of, letting, the whole Einstein thing went away of trying to figure out where it came from and what to do about it. And it's funny, if you ask people, so to go back to, what is it? And let's understand it a bit. If you ask yourself right now, what is anxiety? You probably would come up with a moment of, well, I'm not sure. When I've asked people, you get this confused look, and then they start to tell you symptoms, or they start to tell you where it is triggered. In terms of what anxiety actually is, that seems to have kind of got lost in the fog. And because anxiety is the impulse to physically run away. That's all it is. Its only value is to get us out of the way of physical danger. And I don't know about you, but I don't have a lot of physical danger in my life now. In terms of wild animals, it's the deer wandering around the backyard, or, Now and then there's raccoons screaming, in mating season because they can't get the right female. But in terms of physical danger, that evolutionary impulse has no function, almost no function. If a car nearly hits you and you jump out of the way, that's a good place for anxiety, because the chemical cocktail it fills our bodies with is supposed to put wings on our feet. But we don't have much use for that. So it's interesting, as you know, we still have lots of anxiety around. We don't have the physical danger, but we've got the anxiety. And it seems like in its great, interesting evolutionary wanderings, the survival brain has done something really interesting with anxiety. There isn't the physical danger to trigger it, but now it's kind of being triggered by anything we don't like. An uncomfortable circumstance, somebody says something that's unpleasant, there's something uncertain. The survival brain goes, as if there's physical danger. And we all know what happens then. We can't think. Our bodies, get in trouble because those chemicals attack the joints, they attack the heart. We know all of this, but we don't quite know what to do about it. So I've redefined anxiety. Instead of the impulse to get away from physical danger, it has become an unconscious reaction to something we don't like. And which kind of, not everyone likes that definition, because there's two streams right now in terms of addressing anxiety or depression or any quote unquote mental health issue. One stream of thought is, let's be totally transparent. Let's tell everyone what's going on. Let's share our struggles. And there's a place for that. The other stream is, let's figure out how to be resilient. Let's find the tools to deal with this and to help, the survival brain on its way to figuring out how to be in our modern world in a way that is relevant. And my thought is that anxiety really, its useful function now is as a signpost. Now, when you see a signpost beside the road, you don't go up and hug it and go, oh my goodness, there's the signpost. It's, and get obsessed with the signpost, but we do get obsessed with anxiety. So instead, we look at the signpost and go, okay, that's telling me something. And anxiety is telling us something. It's telling us there's something we don't like. There's telling us something needs our attention. And in that way, for a moment, it's useful. But if we don't follow it to what it's pointing to and just stay with looking at it, we will get stuck forever because there's nothing to do there. If someone says, I'm stressed, there's no solution to that. Somebody says, I'm anxious, there's no solution to that. It's a lid for, if we say I'm stressed or I'm anxious, we usually mean, I don't like what someone said to me. It may be, I've got way too much work to do, or I'm tired, or I need someone to talk to. And when you know and you put the words to what the problem actually is onto it, then you can do something. But I would say the word stress creates stress because it's like hitting a wall. Even the word anxiety can be like hitting a wall. Well, okay, now what? So what does not work to get rid of anxiety? And by the way, when I start to run out of time, please let me know. What doesn't work is common sense advice, because in the survival brain where anxiety comes from, there's no logic. There's almost no language. Have you ever tried to talk yourself or someone else out of, behavior that doesn't make any sense, or out of an addiction, or out of, any patterned behavior? Does it work? Because that part of the brain it just doesn't have logic. So there's no point with common sense. Relaxation techniques, meditation, all of that, they're good things. But usually we have to repeat them and repeat them and repeat them. They don't get rid of the anxiety, they manage it. And my premise is there's a way to use your brain differently that once it teaches the brain just not to go there. And I think, we can really help evolution on its way, and we can't almost afford not to. So exercise and lifestyle changes are another thing people promote as anxiety solutions. They burn off the chemicals, so that feels good, but they don't resolve whatever the signpost is pointing to. So again, you're on a treadmill of anxiety management strategies. And I tell you, if what the gurus were teaching with all these self-help books and trainings and boot camps and stuff, they're teaching the same stuff. It's been around for decades. If it worked, there'd be no anxiety left. Instead, I would say we have a concurrent pandemic of anxiety, because in the pandemic, in COVID, there's so many things we don't like, and we don't know how to look at it that way. So we're just getting more and more and more and more anxious without knowing how to look at all these signposts and figure out, okay, at the end of that signpost, is there anything I can do? So there's a lot of rich gurus, but just ask yourself if what they were teaching worked, would we have all the anxiety we have currently? Now, in my work, I've discovered that everyone really has some kind of relationship to anxiety. And in the very worst case scenario, people are absolutely immobilized. They can't do anything. They're having panic attacks, and often you don't even see them because they're in hospital, or they're just so disabled by anxiety that and it's often trauma-based, that level of anxiety. And I see PTSD as a very specific, unique kind of anxiety that needs specific treatment. So I'm not really talking about that when I talk about anxiety. PTSD is something, it's stored in the brain in a different way. And so in the worst case scenario, as I said, people are just immobilized. In the next state, they are on this treadmill of trying to manage it, and always looking for another answer, and maybe always looking for another medication or another technique or another guru. And they're just getting by. And and if there's a car accident or something, they're into the worst case scenario. Then there's what I call the tolerable situation, which is where most people are, and it's circumstance related. If things are going well, they don't have any anxiety. But if there's something unknown, or if there's a challenge, or there's a big problem, or one of their kids gets sick, or there's a big challenge, suddenly the anxiety is there, and that's how they address the issue. And then the fourth state is totally different. And that's where people have learned to address problems and difficult circumstances and challenges without getting anxious. They leave out that step, because most people, they get anxious and then they solve it. And by then they got a lot less resources to do the solving with. But so there's something I call anxiety deactivation secrets, which are tools and frameworks that get rid of anxiety and teach your brain, as mentioned, not to worry. Now, there's 3 reasons I think we stay stuck in anxiety in our culture. One is there's a whole lot of anxiety myths out there. People believe that everybody's got it, so it's normal. So who are they to not have it? Or my family had it, so I'm an anxious person. People won't think I care if I'm not anxious. I have this saying that worry is like cursing. They're both imagining bad things happening to people. And so when I use that kind of shocking word, people kind of go, what? Because we think that worry is caring. But I know I don't like people imagining bad things happening to me. So one might just reframe a little, looking at worry. So that's one reason people stay stuck in anxiety. They believe there's a whole bunch of myths. Another reason is people believe it can't be resolved. They believe it can only be managed or medicated. And the pharmaceutical company has taken us on a dance since at least the 50s, where they put, you can't believe the ads they put out saying, oh, life is so hard. You're just so wonderful that you're even still here. You need this pill to make you able to cope. And especially women have been vulnerable to that story. There's a book called The Age of Anxiety. I totally recommend it. It's about the journey through history with medication and with the pharmaceuticals evidently weren't making enough money on antibiotics when that was discovered. So they went looking for other areas where they might serve us. And so there's another thing that I look at, again, looking back at Einstein and his belief that if we understand something, we're much more able to deal with it and solve it. And when I worked for victim services, I created training programs for peer counselors of survivors of sexual abuse. And I noticed as I gave the trainings, the students were healing from the understanding. They could take the education away. This is how trauma works. This is how it affects people and so on. They were taking it away and healing without, a specific therapeutic intervention or anything. And I realized how powerful education is. So I've divided anxiety into 9 types according to where it comes from. And not diagnoses, types. And one of them is what I call aversion anxiety. And I'm just going to touch on them. And that is where, as I mentioned, the brain gets anxious if there's something we don't like. And then there's something some of you may be familiar with, which is the anxiety of getting things right. There's people who they always want to find the best way and do it that way. And if life won't let them meet their standards, they get really anxious. There's anxiety of the missing step, which for some people, when there's something unknown, they get very anxious. And am I running out of time?
We'd love you to finish those 9.
Okay, I'll do that, and then I'm pretty well done. Then there's anxiety of overstimulus, and this is when you've got too much on your plate, and your nervous system can't keep up. So, and that's the one where all the relaxation techniques and meditation and so on do help, because you take that time out and you chill. So then there's the kind of anxiety that people hate you for if you mention it, and that is called I call pseudo anxiety. And that's the kind of anxiety where people say, oh, you can't do that, I'll be upset. Oh, you can't do that, I'll worry. And that just means I don't want you to have a choice, but I don't want you to know I don't want you to have a choice. So I'm going to act like you're hurting me if you do that. That's a little complicated, but it's not anxiety at all. And if you don't do what they want, you see, they get mad, and it wasn't anxiety at all. I think back a generation or so, women did a lot of that because they weren't listened to and they didn't know how to get their needs met. So they learned to get anxious so people might listen. And I'm not saying we're listened to now, but I think we can ask for what we want and say what we don't like a lot more clearly than using that strategy of getting so upset that people feel they can't do what they want to do. Then there's media-induced anxiety, which is pretty self-explanatory. There's 2 kinds there. There's the kind that comes from the news, and then there's the kind that comes from what people do to each other on social media. One young woman told me about kids at school taking unflattering pictures of each other when unbeknownst and then posting them. And I thought, oh my goodness, that would really hurt. Then there's what I call experiential anxiety. And this is the kind of anxiety that comes from when you've grown up with actual danger, maybe a dangerous sibling or parent or neighbor or in a war zone, and you have learned to look at the world through the lens of fear. And you have to learn to stop coding things according to your early blueprint. Then there's what I call learned anxiety, which is different than that, because learned anxiety is when you've had a parent or somebody significant who is anxious. And children think, well, the big people must know. So they're afraid. So I better be afraid too. And they start looking for things to be afraid of because kids are wonderful learners. And if somebody is anxious because it's been modeled, it just means they're a really good learner. And then we have PTSD, which is when something so shocking happens that it's stored in a part of the brain that has no sense of time, and the brain doesn't know it's over. So those are the 9 types. And I have developed frameworks to resolve each type, because I think that way we have so much say in our relationship with anxiety. In my ebook, which Anne so beautifully designed, I've laid out the 4 steps that get rid of aversion anxiety. And it's actually it's a technique that's pretty good for most kinds. So hopefully you can see from that what I hope to get across is that there are actually ways to resolve anxiety so it stops coming back, and to train your brain that, we don't need that fear response, and that we can learn frameworks that actually work to give us the say that we want in our lives. And then we can see who we are, and we can create the magnificent lives that are in resonance with that amazing beauty that's who we are.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Faith. I'm going to hand over to Sherry now. I just wanted to say that I've put Faith's website on the chat. She has a solution on her site if ladies want to go and have a look at it. And yeah, feel free to connect with Faith, especially if you're in the same town, whenever you have a need. Thank you, Faith.
Pleasure.
That was amazing, Faith. I love the definition of anxiety. I mean, both the one that was previous and the one that you've laid out for people. And I know that so many of us want the gift of living our life anxiety free. And certainly you have a lot of wisdom to share. And maybe for the people out in our Facebook group, her website is liveanxietyfree.com. And you can also find that later on the YouTube.
I'll just mention that's LIV, not LIVE, because that otherwise you won't find it.
Okay, thank you. Actually, I didn't realize that. Yeah, now I see that. So thank you so much. Great information. So our next speaker is Anita Papp, and she is a self-love mentor and life coach, focusing on teaching the importance of mindset, self-awareness, and building the best possible relationship with yourself. She is a breast cancer survivor, and the experience made her wanting to help others create a guilt-free, joyful, and fulfilled life. And her message is that you don't have to deal with life-threatening illnesses or wait for other hardships before you learn to love and appreciate yourself. And she's reaching out to thousands of people with this message through her Love Yourself First Now Facebook group. It's her mission to make self-love and self-care more mainstream. So welcome, Anita.
Thank you very much for having me here and sharing. I'm so delighted to share this message with your audience. And yeah, let's talk about self-love because this is my favorite topic. And if I'm allowed, I am going to share my story first. How did I come across this whole self-love idea? So you can hear probably that I have an accent, right? So I came to Canada almost to the day 19 years ago with my family. I'm originally Hungarian, and when we immigrated here, my family back home, because I'm an only child, didn't really like that we are moving away so far away from Hungary, and who knows what's going to happen. So they didn't support this idea. And I'm a good girl type. I am very, very um, like to please others. I love to, everybody feel good around me. So a good girl type is never doing anything that actually hurt others. So it wasn't an easy time. We moved here with my two kids who were 4 and 7 years old at the time. And I needed to learn the language, we needed to establish our lives. And it was really hard without the help of our parents. And I don't mean physical help, I mean emotional support and all these things that you kind of expect from your parents. At the beginning, when we started to work our life, get together here in Canada, we were so busy trying to do everything. And on the surface, everything went well. We had jobs, we raised the kids, and it seemed that, oh, we are reaching our dream. We got what we came for. But deep down, something was not right with me. I wasn't happy. I felt that, oh my God, I'm just disappointing my parents. I lived in guilt for a long, long time. For a long time, nothing happened. I was thinking that, okay, this is my life. Let's see what's going to happen. But in 2013, something started to raise to the surface. And it was when my dad was actually diagnosed with cancer. As I mentioned, I'm an only child, and it was my fear that my mom or my dad, either of them, is going to live alone, and what's going to happen with them. So he didn't want to get healed. He refused treatments, and it was a terrible time for our family. And within 7 months, he passed away. I was visiting him and my family back in Hungary. And I remember he was still alive. And my mom told me one night that he doesn't want to get well because you took away the kids, you moved away, and he doesn't have anything to live for. And I was just gasping and oh my God, how is this happening? But it was kind of a relief too that finally something was said out loud that wasn't mentioned before. And I was crying a lot that night, and it was a terrible time. I came back to Canada, and within a few weeks I was just discovering that I have a lump in my breast. And I didn't know how it happened because before it wasn't there. It somehow happened very, very quickly. Somehow it manifested. And I don't have a proof for that. Why did it happen? Or is it true? My theory is true. But I feel that with this thing that my mom said, I was finally admitting that, oh, I'm a terrible person. I need to get punished. And this was my quote punishment. So everything started, all the things that comes with cancer, all the treatments. And I just realized that if I want to get healed, it's not enough to go to the doctors, get the surgery, get the radiation. I need to do something else because deep down I was hurting. I needed to get healed emotionally as well, not just physically. And it's not possible, in my opinion, doing one thing without the other. So soon I realized as I started to work on myself that, oh my gosh, I never ever really liked myself. I was always feeling that I'm not enough, I'm not doing enough, something is never right with me. And yes, the point is that I didn't love myself and I needed to work on this. As I started to do this personal growth journey, things started to change in my environment. For example, that I was working as an office manager at that time, and soon enough, I just totally lost the interest in my job. I felt that really, is this my point in life or purpose in life to go somewhere every day and create invoices for a person who I don't even know who is he. And I started to shift. I wanted to do something about this, first for myself, and after, when I discovered that this is working, this is extremely well working, when I start realizing that you can change things around you in your thoughts and with the actions that follow the thoughts. I wanted to help others to know how powerful they are. So at that time, I remember that I was sharing my story and my excitement for personal development with everybody who was nearby and listening. And I decided, okay, let's do something about it. I started to learn about life coaching because it seemed to be a good tool to get my message through to others. I quit my job about 5.5 years ago, and this is how Anita Papp life coaching started, because I wanted to share this message with others. I see in my group that so many people, women mostly, who come to me, they are just struggling with this concept of relaxing or loving themselves. They do everything for others. They are sacrificing themselves for others, but it's really hard for them actually to do something for themselves. And in my case, as Sherry mentioned in the introduction, it was that you don't, yes, I needed to go through cancer to get this message, but since it's a really painful experience, I don't want others to get to the point when they are dealing with a serious illness or dealing with something really traumatic, when they finally can decide, oh, I'm worthy of love, I can love myself, I can do things for myself. So it's just, this whole topic is amazing. And the question I get the most in my Facebook group when people come to me that, okay, I know that I need to love myself more, but how do I get started? It's a really good question, right? Because if you were living your life with some limiting beliefs and negative self-talk, and nobody supported you when you wanted to do something nice for yourself, it's really hard to start. Where do we start? And I believe that we need to start with a decision that, yes, we are going to do something for ourselves. We are going to love ourselves more. And it seems pretty easy. And I know that it's not working for everybody. So it's important to know yourself enough. If you need help from a psychologist, for example, because you need to deal with your past traumas, because life coaches can't really help with past traumas, right? We're just concentrating on and focusing on the now and the future. But most people can make this decision for themselves that, yes, I am going to do and start this self-love journey. So I have this little exercise that I recommend to people to do when they start this self-love journey. It's called My Daily Self-Love Practice. And these are just a few little exercises that people can do and get the idea of self-love. What can you do for yourself on a daily basis? And just like everything else, self-love is practicing. You need to practice it until it becomes second nature. And it's not going to happen overnight. You need to be self-disciplined. You need to do it over and over again until you see the benefits. So for example, this is the idea. Find an affirmation for the day. Write down your positive words, a quote, or a phrase. It could be today for me that it's a very simple thing, that today is a good day. You can start your day with something like this. The number 2 is today's treat. This can be big or small, a walk, buying your favorite coffee, or napping. Today, my treat is going to be seeing my friend tonight and have a dinner with her. So the next thing is 5 things I love about myself. First, I think it's hard for many people to find 5 things that they love about themselves. But again, it's practice. So simple things like I'm resilient, I'm here, I survived cancer, I am helping others, I am a reader, I'm a good person. So many things you can put together, and if you start practicing it, more is going to come your way. And number 4 is five things I'm grateful for. It again can be very small or something big. I'm grateful for my health today. I'm grateful for my family. I have a little kitty who brings me enormous joy. I'm grateful for that. And I'm grateful for my mom and that she's healthy. So there are many benefits when you start loving yourself. And when we start doing this, we are not only healing ourselves, we are healing our community and society. I feel that our generation's most important task to teach the next generation that loving ourselves is important, and it's not something that you need to feel guilty about it. Can you imagine that, let's say I have 2 daughters, when they can do it without feeling the guilt, that they can take a break, they can do something for themselves. And there is a confusion around self-love, in my opinion, that people often think that if I'm loving myself, I'm a narcissistic person. No, you are not. Self-love is necessary. So just quickly, a few benefits about self-love. You become more authentic, and your relationships will become more authentic. You put down lots of hard things you carry emotionally. You teach others to be themselves too. You will be more successful. You will be able to create healthy boundaries, and so much more. There's a quote from Lucille Ball, and I think it sums it up really beautifully. It says, love yourself first, and everything else falls into line. So this is my message to everyone. Love yourself first, and everything is going to be better in your life.
Oh, thank you, Anita. That's there's just so much wisdom in all that you shared. And Anita is a contributor to at45.com, and she's got an article in there this week following up on the theme today. Plus also Anita Reisinger has a great affirmation for this week. And I think those are 2 things that really resonated with me, Anita, is one that being selfish has got a bad rap. We nowadays people are thinking that to be selfish isn't a good thing, and especially our age group. It seems that for some reason we were brought up with this idea that we need to be of service to others and put ourselves last, and it's definitely not healthy for us to do that. So thank you very much. And what did you learn today?
Well, absolutely. I mean, I think that a lot of us are brought up in homes, and not saying that it's the fault of our parents, but it really does stem from parents by parents by parents, going all the way back to our ancestors, but really that they want us to, we taught us little kids to put everyone first, to put others first. Go and get that for that person, go do that for that person. And we learn, as a result of this, that we need to serve, and serving, make no mistake, is a wonderful thing, to serve others. But you have to, like in all cases, when you're on that aeroplane and they ask you to put your oxygen mask on first before you help your child, there's a reason for that. Because if you don't help yourself first, you're never going to be able to help anyone else. So yeah, and so a lot of women take this as, oh, I cannot help myself first because that's selfish. And of course, that's a topic for another day. But you definitely you definitely have to save yourself before you can save anyone else. But that's just my message to everyone today.
And it's a good message. So we wanted to ask you and anybody who's listening, to put some thoughts in the chat today. We're going to be drawing for a prize. So the question that we want you to answer is, what is one thing you heard from today's speakers that you want to apply to your life this week? So, I mean, there was so much. Where do you start? But if one thing resonated with you, can you please drop it in the chat? And today, the gift or the prize that we're giving out is this book called Pursuit 365. You can see how thick it is. And that's because there are 365 women who came together in this book to share their stories of learning to love themselves, of overcoming trauma in their life, learning new things, learning how to change their mindset, and finding new directions. And I'm particularly proud of it because I'm one of the co-authors in it. It's available on Amazon. I think it's just been sold out again for the second time. If you want a copy, reach out to us and we'll tell you where you can get a copy. But it's a marvelous book, and there's just so many inspirational stories in there. It's just amazing. So, Anne,
Yes.
let's look through the chat. There's some that we can share there.
Yes, there's a thought actually from Faith, as she adds additional value to our Fabulous Friday by saying, not taking care of yourself is the most selfish thing you can do, because eventually it makes others. Oops, the chat is moving faster than I can read. It makes other people look after you, whether they want to or not. Okay.
Yeah. I love the one. Gosh, they are going by fast.
Moving up too fast.
I'm just going to go back here. Geraldine mentions, understand the problem, then I'm 80% there to solving it. Oh, that is really, it's like opening a light or turning a light on when you think about it, because often we're thinking about the problem. We're not actually looking into the problem. And so, Faith had mentioned that if you are understanding your problem, then you're 80% there to solving it. So always remember, some deep dive is required to get there. But it's inspiring to know that if you are looking into your problem, you're almost to the solution. It's just taking that one step. So another one was reading the book Age of Anxiety, which I think Faith had mentioned that one. And again, that is sounding like a great book to get into, for sure. So I think Geraldine hit the nail on the head today and sort of captured it. So Geraldine, we're going to send that book off to you. Can you please drop your address in the chat, or send it to Anne, and we'll make sure to get that book off to you this week. So one of the things that we're encouraging everyone to do is to please share the show out so that we can grow it and continue to offer it up. You heard today, we always are looking for amazing speakers who have a lot of wisdom to share. We've done a great job, but if there's someone that you think would be great for a speaker, please reach out and let us know. And the same thing with the magazine at 45.com. We're always looking for contributors, especially with subject expertise. So if you haven't already, please subscribe to it. And next week, we've got a really interesting show lined up again. Anne, are your finances protected?
Oh, yeah. And if anything, if you have perfect finances and everything's in order, just come for the candy. This is such a good looking guy that we're going to have on next week to share about cyber hacking, which is something that we all should worry about, but we don't.
It's true. If you've ever been defrauded online, and I know it's happened to me, or had your identity stolen, which you might think is an unusual situation, but I can assure you it's not. In fact, some of the you'll probably be hearing in the news often. Companies are getting their information hacked and taken control of and held up for ransom. They have to pay a fee, and in fact, it was just in the news again in Canada. There was a big company that happened to, and when that kind of thing happens, of course, your personal data goes into this dark web. And so Omer Segoli is going to be talking to us about that. And then we have Tanya Lynn Work, who is sharing. She's been doing our finance and articles in the magazine, and she comes from a place of great knowledge. So make sure and sign up for that show. Well, Anne, it's been an amazing show again.
I know, it's been absolutely awesome. We've had some Facebook people watching the show from Facebook, and we've had a lovely, amazing crowd today. Thank you for using the chat to pass your comments. And yeah, I think that's it from me. Over to you, Sherry.
Well, we're getting ready for the weekend, TGIF. Thank God it's Friday, but also thank God I'm fabulous. You can say that because you are fabulous. So go out and live fabulous. Have a wonderful week, everyone, and we will see you next week. Bye.